And that's right, 53 hours in this week's fast, heading to 72 hours. Hey, 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 we are reversing diabetes. We are improving our metabolism. We are becoming more insulin sensitive. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health in your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to reverse their diabetes, and we are using fasting as one of those ways to do that. Hey, if you're new, go ahead and put new in the comments because we'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and let you know that we are excited that you are here. If you do have questions as we move throughout our show tonight, go ahead and drop those in the comments and make sure you put a Q in front of it so that we'll know that that is a question as we're kind of scrolling through, and we will get to those as we get to that space. As you know how we do, I've got over here my monitors that we're going to take a look at in just a minute, and I've got my Dexcom Clarity Report. So let's go ahead and let's hop over and take a look at that really quickly. So right here, this is my Keto Mojo meter, which will give me a glucose and will also give me a ketones. And then I've got the contour. And right below me, you'll see there that is my Dexcom Clarity Report that we'll take a look at here in just a little while as we move through the space of diabetes and metabolism and fasting and what's going on there, so you can see what's been going on with my blood sugars. Whatever platform you are on right now, I welcome you to our show, welcome you to the community. I'm always excited when I'm here and excited to see you, whether you're on LinkedIn or Twitch or Instagram or Facebook, and of course here on YouTube. If there's someone that you know that should be here that you've invited and you don't see him, go ahead and grab them and say, hey, we're in the saddle and we are moving. We're moving. So what are we doing? What are we doing? Fasting. Fasting is what we're doing, right? Fasting, 53 hours, actually now almost 54 hours in another 10 minutes or so. Once a week, I do a fast. Once a week, I do a fast, and I encourage my community to do a fast once a week as well. We'll talk about what the benefits of fasting are. You know, tomorrow we'll kind of go through a complete review of fasting, how to prepare for a fast, how to get through the fast, and then of course how to break the fast so that we're successful. But what I want to do is set the tone, set the basis for what we're doing and why we're doing it. And the reason for what we're doing has to do with these chronic illnesses that we talk about, the chronic illnesses that so many people suffer from. Right now on the planet, around the world, there are over 500,000 people who are suffering from diabetes and from prediabetes. That's right, over 500,000. 500 million, I said 500,000. 500 million. There are also over 500 billion people who are 500 million, I keep getting those numbers, a million with an M, 500 million people who are suffering from prediabetes. If you put them together, we're talking about over 1 billion people on the planet. That's billion with a B, that have diabetes or prediabetes. Now, we are not even in that list, including the people who have other metabolic diseases like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, people who suffer from polycystic ovarian syndrome, people who are suffering from obesity, and of course, fatty liver. All of those are diseases along the spectrum of metabolism. And so in this space, you heard me say at the top of the show that I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to reverse their diabetes. That's right, who want to reverse their diabetes. Reversing diabetes, there is a certain set of principles that we learn as we're moving through this journey. Those same principles, though, can be applied to metabolic diseases in general. So if we can deal with and treat a particular metabolic disease, diabetes being the prototypic, then we can extrapolate those same principles, those same procedures, those same plans, and begin affecting other metabolic diseases like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, polycystic ovarian syndrome and metabolic syndrome itself. As we've been walking through the path, right, the journey that we're on, limitless living, is what we're talking about. That is what we show, as what we do on our show on Mondays as we're walking through that path, Dwain Woode MD Live. And then on these fasting check-ins, what we're doing is we're learning the things that we need to do to apply the principles and the concepts that we're learning as we move through the journey. And one of the things that we're using is the tool of fasting. Fasting is an amazing tool that allows us to hit the 3 pillars of reversing diabetes. Number 1, decreasing insulin. Number 2, suppressing the appetite. And number 3, reducing sugar. Those are the 3 big principles when we talk about reversing diabetes. Those are the things that we want to do. And fasting allows us to do that. Because if we're fasting, then we're not putting anything in, we're not eating anything, and so automatically our sugar is reduced, right? Reducing sugar. Because sugar is reduced, then our body doesn't have to produce as much insulin, or we don't have to take insulin if we're on insulin as a medication. That decreases the insulin. That's pillar number 1, right? So now we've got pillar number 1, pillar number 3. And then because insulin is an appetite stimulant, when we've decreased insulin, automatically we get to suppress the appetite. And so there it is. We've hit all 3 of those parameters, all 3 of those things that we need to do in order to reverse diabetes. And that is the crux of what we're doing, reversing diabetes. And so here you found us, and what we're doing is we're learning to apply the tools. We're learning to apply fasting. We're going to talk about fasting, how I'm feeling, how long I've been fasting, and we're going to talk specifically tonight about the foods that we eat in our non-fasting window. The times when we're not eating, the times we're not fasting, what are we eating? And we're gonna talk a little bit about balanced bites. That's one of the concepts that we here are using to say, okay, these are the things that we need to be eating that will help us also begin improving our metabolism. Now we'll make a correlation there in a minute, but while we're doing that, before we get there, let's go ahead and I do a check-in when I start the show, because I want you to know how I'm doing in 3 different areas, 3 different parameters, and these are the places where people tend to have the most challenges, so we're going to talk about them. And that is how I am doing physically, mentally, and emotionally. Physically, mentally, and emotionally. These are the places where, as people are going through fasting, they may have the challenges. And the first concept that I want to talk about as I do the check-in is to understand that fasting is not just not eating. When we talk about fasting, often people say, well, oh yeah, I'm not eating, so I'm good. Well, it's not just about not eating. That ultimately is what you're doing, but there are hormonal changes that are going on, there are psychological changes that are going on, there are physical changes that are going on in your body. And so it affects so many different systems in the body that we want to make sure that we are checking in with ourselves, that we're doing an inventory to make sure that we are being safe and that we're getting the benefits that we want. So how am I doing physically? So 53 hours of fasting, and we're well beyond the 24 hours of fasting where my body has switched to ketones, where my body has moved away from burning carbohydrates. If you are out there and you think you know what my ketones are going to be, because we're going to check those in a minute, go ahead and drop that in the comments, drop that in the chat with your guess of what my ketones should be, or what you think they will be here at 53 plus hours, almost 54 hours. Okay? But physically, I am pretty energetic. I have been fasting, like I said, almost 54 hours. I'm not feeling lightheaded, sweaty, dizzy. I'm not having palpitations, feeling like my heart's racing. I'm actually feeling full of energy. I've been doing a good job over the last week or so of resting. And that is a key component of how we feel physically when we're fasting. The other thing that I've been doing is doing a good job of hydrating. Got my little mug. So I've been doing a good job of hydrating. And if we do those two things, then typically the fast, as we go through the fast, physically we feel well. So I am not feeling as though I'm tired or having to force myself to push through. Sometimes people will say they feel as though they are in they are walking through quicksand or mud, or they feel like they've hit a wall, right? They're going through the day and all of a sudden, boom, they feel like they've hit a wall, and so their energy is drained. I'm not feeling any of that right now, okay? The next thing is how we are doing mentally, right? So physically, mentally, and the mental part a lot of times will go along with the physical. So if you are not well rested, if you are feeling sluggish, if you are feeling as though you are moving through quicksand or you've hit that wall, then often that will show up with your thought process. And I mean, if you're tired, if you haven't had good sleep, or you've been up working and you're exhausted, your thought process begins to fade, right? And so, you're not as quick, you're not as agile in your thought process. You have difficulty finding words. You can't reason well. In fact, when they do studies, they say that if you are sleep deprived, often you have the same kind of response times as people who are intoxicated. Okay, so physically doing well right now. Mentally, I'm feeling good. I've went through the day. I do have to say that it was cold and a little wet today. I went out for my walk and I was doing my videotaping, and I did find that I struggled a little bit, but I think I did that as soon as I finished the morning session at the office. Got my stuff on, went outside. It was cold. I didn't bundle up as I should have, so there were several things that were going on. So I think some of that had played a part in what I was feeling, both physically and mentally, earlier today. And then, of course, emotionally, we just came off of a vacation, right? I was hanging out with some of my friends overseas, and so we had a good time, and we've been, kind of talking to each other over the last several days, hanging out with my son and my wife, and so emotionally, I'm actually feeling pretty full, right? Remember, when we have relationships, let me say it a little differently. When our relationships are not stable, then often emotionally we have those feelings of emptiness and loneliness, and that can show up in fasting. Okay? All right. So that's my check-in. So physically, mentally, and emotionally. I have done shows, as you know, where I've talked about the fact that I haven't been hydrating or I haven't been doing a good job of resting. You can go back and look at those, and you'll see how I'm doing at those times. But right now, actually feeling pretty good. Let's go ahead and we're going to hop over and take a look at what my blood sugars are. And right now, you'll see that my Libre says that my blood sugar is 67. And for most of today, right, so there's this line right there. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. That squiggly line, that white line that's going through the dark green, that is my blood sugar. And you see for most of today, the blood sugar has been below 100. That's right, below 100. And in fact, several times there, or one time there, it dropped below 100, below 70. And you see the red part, red part right here. Okay, and then of course right now where the red dot is, I'm below 70, so 67 right now. Let's go ahead and let's take a look and see what the Dexcom shows. And the Dexcom shows that right now I'm 95. I actually just put this Dexcom on a little while ago because it ended right here about, what time was that? It ended about 6 o'clock, and I got one on about 9-ish. Okay. But if I kind of scroll back through, you'll see what those blood sugars have been doing in the low to upper 80s, 90s, going back, and so 1 teens to 110, Looks like the highest that it got was probably right there at 114 early this morning. And actually 114 a couple of times. 116, there you go. I think that's the highest I've seen, 116. And then continued dropping, dropping. And of course, here we are at 95. If that was 24 hours, if I look at a 12-hour, this would look similar to what we saw on the Libre. Okay, all right. So that's my Dexcom and my Libre. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at what my monitors are going to say. Right. So I've got the Keto Mojo, I've got the Contour, and once again, if you think you know what my ketones are going to be, go ahead and drop those in the comments. And let's go ahead and grab my handy dandy container here that has, oh no, the ones I really like, we don't have any more in here. So I'm gonna have to use, so I'm looking for a Lancet. Oh, I can use this. So here's one that I was using before. I went away to the blue one. I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of these. This is the spring-loaded one as well. So I'm gonna grab a couple of those just to have them out. But the one I'm gonna use is this guy right here. Okay. All right. So let's get those over. And so I have two different strips for the Keto Mojo. I've got the blue one is the ketone strip, and the brown one is the glucose strip. So let's go ahead and get a contour strip into the contour meter. Boom, boom, boom. Get that over here. Okay, and then I'm going to open both of these. I'm going to open the blue one, which is the ketone, and I'm going to have that off to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the glucose, and that one I'm going to go ahead and put in right now. Okay, because we're going to get that started. All right. And I'm gonna try to use this. If it doesn't work, then I'll come back and use these guys. All right, so let's go ahead and this is just a twist off, right? You just twist off the top right here. And basically find a finger. And I don't use a Lansing device. I just use the Lancet and just find a finger. And you guys will notice that every time I do this, I actually tend to go to the same side of the finger and on the same finger. I don't know if it's deliberate. I don't plan to do that, but it is the one that is most calloused and it doesn't hurt as much. So my brain says go right there. All right, so let's see if I get a good blood flow. So I got a good drop of blood there. It's a small one, but I think that will work. So go ahead and get that on the contour. Go ahead and get the Keto Mojo started. Okay. And so 74 is what the contour says. And let's go ahead and get this back up so you can see. So right there is what the Libre says. So 74, both the contour and the Keto Mojo says the same thing. So let's go ahead and get this strip out. And I've got to get the ketone one in there before this drop of blood dries. But let's go ahead and do that. And go ahead and get that started. Here we are. Okay, hopefully that drop of blood. Okay, there we are. Okay. So once again, if you think you know, go ahead and drop those in. And of course, I'm not going to let you see it. We'll come back and look at that in a minute. All right. So while that's running, I do see some of our community members out there. So let's go ahead and let's say hello to everyone. And let's go back up, and I see Steve, and Steve is saying that he thinks that I think this is your guest, Steve. Steve is saying that he thinks that my ketones are going to be 1.6. I think, if I remember correctly, our last episode, when we did it, it was 1.1. I think that was what it was. And so Steve is saying he thinks it's going to be 1.6. Cornelia is also here. She says, hi, Dr. Woode and Woode Gang. Thank you, Dr. Woode, for tonight's message and check-in. You are so welcome. Glad that you are here, Cornelia. And then Cornelia says that she thinks that my ketones are going to be 2.0. Okay, so Cornelia is saying, yeah, it's going to be up there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to star both of those, Steve's and Cornelia's. And let's see if anybody else is guessing on any of the other platforms. So no other guesses right now, but we'll kind of hold on to those two, and we'll come back to them in a minute. All right. So while that's, I mean, we got that running so far. That's over there. We're going to come back. We're going to take a look at it. But let's go ahead and let's talk about our fasting, and talk about what that's doing for us, what we hope that does for us. So in our last episode, we talked about how the body worked, and I introduced to some, and maybe refreshed for others who may be watching, that the low energy state. And the low energy state is this idea that whenever the body has some disruption in its mechanisms, whatever the mechanisms are, whether it's using nutrients, converting food to energy, water, sleep, stress, whatever it is, anytime there's a disruption in our body's mechanisms, then the body begins to slowly die. That's right, we said that word. Okay, so things like hair and nails and skin, those are the things that we see first, because those are the most rapidly turning over cells. And so the body is saying, hey, I'm going to get rid of that. I would much rather lose my hair, nails, and skin than to have the rest of me die, essentially, right? And so that's what the body does. And so what I want to do is I want to talk tonight about this concept that we have been discussing, and you hear me say it often, right? You hear me say balanced bites. Balanced bites. We fuel our body with balanced bites. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of walk through the fuel that we're using to put into the body. So when we're not fasting, what are the things that we are eating that are setting us up for success during the fast? Okay, so that's the big thing. The other thing is, as we are working to right our metabolism, what are those foods? What are the types of foods that we should be eating? And we alluded to this in our last episode, but let's kind of run through that again. Okay, and so what we're talking about is this idea of balanced bites. Balanced bites. And the balanced bites comes from the thought process, and comes from the idea that our body is a machine. It is a system that requires certain nutrients, requires certain forms of energy, if you will. And so the things that we put into it, just like when you go to the gas station, you're buying gas, they've got the 87, the 89, the 92, I think, the 93, whatever number it is, right? So they have different quality of gas depending on the type of car. And so our bodies, you can put whatever you want in it, right? So there are things that you can eat. So in fact, when we are looking at the different things that we can eat candy bars, we can eat a piece of meat, we can take a tablespoon, we can just shovel sugar into our mouth, we can eat vegetables. So there are a variety of things that we can eat, but the question is, what is the food, or what are the foods that give us the best possibility of being successful with the body? Now, I am going to just preface all of this by saying that when I'm talking about balanced bites is not intended to be a stick that we're beating people over the head with. Just today, I was talking to one of our medical students in the office, and we were talking about the concept of a guideline. Sometimes when we see guidelines, we think that guidelines are hard and fast rules, and there's a law that says this is how it is, and any deviation from that is basically bad. Okay? So guidelines are simply that. They are guidelines. And there are times when circumstances will push you away from the guidelines, or you will make a decision to not follow the guideline. So as I'm talking about balanced bites, as we talk about fasting, there are certain principles that are inherent in both of those. But that doesn't mean that if you don't follow that you are breaking a law, or you are off the ranch, or whatever the phrase that we use. Okay? For example, fasting. I do a 72-hour fast. I do a 72-hour fast because I've found that for myself, doing an extended fast works better. It gives me faster results. It allows me to deal with some of the significant metabolic issues that I have caused, or choices that I've made that now I'm living with. I fast for 72 hours also because it's a way, when we are here in this space, for the community to be able to see what is going on with my blood sugars, right? So I can fast for 16 hours and come on and do a 16-hour check-in, but I want you to be able to see, well, what happens to blood sugars? What happens to ketones? What happens to weight, for example, if I'm doing extended fasts? So part of it is for the community, part of it is for me. Right, I've been doing 16/8 intermittent fasting before, but when I started doing extended fasts, the control that I seemed to have was more pronounced. And when I say control, one of my struggles is I struggle with food. I struggle with food, and when I'm fasting, the food noise becomes quieter. It doesn't go away, but it becomes quieter, and I can manage it better, right? But that doesn't mean that if I do a 48-hour fast, or a 24-hour fast, or even go back to a 16-hour fast, that I've lost my mind, or I've gone off the reservation, or I've gone off the rails. So that when we eat, there are certain principles that we want to follow. There are certain guidelines that we want to follow. But if I am doing something that's not on the guideline, it is not for us to then take, hey, this is the balanced bite, this is the principle, and you beat me over the head to say, okay, well, you're not following. Okay? So I just wanted to make sure we had that conversation. So let's go back and let's talk about balanced bites. So balanced bite says that my body, and actually, let me come back here for a minute. So balanced bite says that my body responds best to certain types of foods. And certain types of foods, certain things that I eat, are the best for making sure that my body is functioning the way I want it to function. It is the best. So that when we talk about the list, and I'm going to make specific points about them, this is the ideal that we are shooting for. If there's something on that list that right now you are unable to do for whatever reason, that doesn't mean that you've lost. We're always talking about progress and not perfection. All right, so let's walk through these together, right? So whole foods first. So whenever we're talking about balanced bites, whenever we're talking about putting things in the body, the closer it is to the original form of that food, the better it is for us. The closer it is to the original form of that food, the better it is for us. If we take, for example, and you saw in the I guess let me go back there. You see in the pictures that are above, right? So let's grab, pick anything there. Let's take bell peppers. No, let's take broccoli, right? Let's take broccoli. You see that up there. If I take that broccoli and I steam it And I take that broccoli and I process it, right? Chop it up, I put it in some sauces, and I put it in a can, and I put it on the shelf, and you buy it and you eat it. It is a vegetable, and it is healthy. But the processed broccoli that's in the can is less desirable than the broccoli that you just picked and steamed, and maybe you put some salt on it and you ate it. So when we say whole foods and processed, right? Well, and we'll come to processing in a minute. We're talking about the not that the broccoli is bad, but now that we've processed it, we've done some things to it that may not be the best for our body. Make sense so far? All right. So now let's go back to the whole foods idea. So we can take food, we can pick, for example, food off the branch, dig it out of the ground, whatever the food is. And that food is what I call a whole food. You can go and you can, if you're doing chicken or fish or a piece of meat, when you take it and you butcher it and you dress it, that is the whole food. We can now take both of those, right? Whether it's a vegetable or fruit or nut or whatever, or it's a piece of meat, fish, chicken, and we can begin processing that. And we take the meat, for example, we grind it up and we put some preservatives in it and we turn it into whatever, and we now bring that back. I'm saying that the original piece of meat, chicken or fish, is more desirable than what we just created by processing it. And the idea behind the processing is, for example, if you grind up a piece of meat and you have that same meat right now, right? That is closer to the original than if I now take that ground up meat and I process it further to make sure that it has good shelf life, and I put some coloring in it, and I put some salt in it, and now I've got the nitrates that are in it, and I put it on the shelf in the form of whatever the form is, right, with that expiration date. That processed food is less desirable than the original. So I want you to understand what I mean when I say whole foods. That's what whole foods are. Things that are closest as possible to the original. Now, why is that important? Why is that important? Let's take vegetables and fruits, for example. When we process vegetables and fruits and grains, in order to process them, often what we do is we crush them, we heat them, boil them, steam them, whatever we're doing to it. When we do that, we are breaking down, we are denaturing some of the fiber that's in it. In order to get it pure, we homogenize it, and so we strip out some of the nutrients. In order to get it to be desirable, we sometimes will put coloring in it. And that process of getting the food to the shelf so that when you look at it, you're like, okay, it's so bright and beautiful, and I'm going to go buy that and eat it. That and it stays on the shelf for a long time. That process of getting it to that form does things to the food that now causes problems for us in our body. Simple example. If I take a grain, the grain has carbs in it, right? Right? We know that. So when I eat the grain, my blood sugar is going to go up. It's going to spike because there are carbs in it. If I take that grain and I grind it up and I now create something from it and I eat that grain in that minced, that finely ground state, my body absorbs those particles much quicker than the original. So I get a bigger spike, a faster spike in my blood sugar, not because there's something wrong with grain, but because of the way it was processed. The particles are so small that my body readily absorbs them. And because I have ground it up so finely, then the fiber that was there that blunted the rise in my blood sugar, that fiber, those structures are gone, or they're minimized, or they're depleted. They don't work as well. And so whereas if I ate some kind of grain, my blood sugar would have gone up like this. Now when I eat that, the blood sugar goes up like this because it's more readily absorbed. Okay? So when we talk about whole foods, that is what we're talking about. That doesn't mean that you can't tomorrow go out and buy something that's on the shelf that's, that's been processed. You can do that, but understand that it is better for your body the closer it is to the original. Okay? Now, and I don't have anything here, but I went out and I bought a bag of almonds. Yes, I did. Those who've been following, we know almonds is one of those things for me. I didn't buy cashews, right? If I bought cashews, it would be over. But I bought a bag of almonds, and they are roasted and lightly salted. Roasted and lightly salted. So the question that people will ask is, wait a minute, is that processed? Right? And so we can get into all of those types of conversations. Needless to say, or suffice it to say, that is a closer form than if I took those almonds now and grounded them up, and then now I'm eating, right? Or I don't want to talk about any specific product, but I honey roasted it, right? Or I dusted it with Cajun seasoning, or what was it, mesquite or sriracha or whatever they put on it, right? But you get the idea. Okay, so it's not that you can't eat those things, because as a matter of fact, I do. In fact, one of the things that I don't go out and buy, as a matter of fact, hold on, I think I do have, wait a minute. All right, so here's my show and tell box. Here's my show and tell box. Okay, and so this box is designed to show and tell. So let's take a look. Let's see. So, boom, here we go. Okay, so here's my show and tell box. All right, so these are processed products, and so yeah, here's the one I was telling you about. All right. So here is and this is not the one I was just telling you about, the lightly roasted and salted, but this is, right, habanero barbecue. And so what they've done is they've taken these almonds and they've added things to them. So they're processed. This bag of almonds is going to sit on the shelf for quite a while. Right, because it's been processed. You can take, let's get that out of the way. You can take potatoes, right? And now what we've done is we've created chips out of them. Now, is it possible to eat chips? Yes. So I'm not saying you can't eat chips, but the processing of that potato will cause a bigger spike in blood sugar than the original potato. Here I've got, so these guys, you guys know how I talk about this stuff right here, right? So this is Cadbury. This is the fruit and the nut one, and this is the almond roasted one. If I look at this, right, the amount of carbs that is in this, let's see, what does it say? it says total fat, saturated fat, sodium, serving size. So there are 5 servings in this thing, and total carbs, 17 grams of carbs per serving. Right? So 3 servings of this would be equal to 45 grams of carbs, roughly, right? And that 45 grams of carbs is what we usually tell people to eat for an entire meal. If I look at this Ritz cracker, this is one of those small bags. In this thing, is a Ritz? Yeah, Ritz Bites. Ritz Bites. In this thing, 150 calories. 150 calories. And it has 17 grams of carbs. Right, so 17 grams of carbs here. These chips, 240 calories and 23 grams of carbs. Right? And then if I look at Doritos, so I'm showing you all the things that I loved eating. Right? These are my go-tos. So 260 calories and 31 grams of carbs. 31 grams of carbs in this bag. And then finally, well, not finally, but here's another one that I love. And these are right, so jalapeno chips. And there are 200 calories in this thing. And let's see, 23 grams of carbs. Okay? So when we talk about whole foods, what we're talking about is food that is as close as possible to the original, right? So balanced bites. Remember what we're talking about? We're talking about balanced bites. What are those things that we eat that set us up for success? So balanced bites. So when we talk about balanced bites, going back to our list, so whole foods, number 1, minimize processing, which is what we just talked about. No added sugar. No added sugar. What does that mean? So no added sugar does not mean you can't eat things that have sugar in it. So for example, fruits have sugar. Fruits have sugar. And so if you eat a fruit, there's sugar in it. But what we're talking about is the process of adding sugar to a product. You could buy orange juice that's natural. They squeeze it off the tree, they homogenize it, whatever they do, and they put it in a box. And you get it and you drink it. There's sugar in it from the fruit itself. But you can also buy orange juice where they've put additional sugar to make it sweeter. And so what we're saying is, as you're looking at the balanced bites, we've already dealt with the whole foods. We've already dealt with the processing. And now the next thing on our list is we're going to begin looking at foods that are, whatever sugar is in it is the sugar that comes from the food itself. So let's see. Let's look at this one. Let's see, dietary sugar. I'm going to go back to our overhead view here. All right, so let's take a look at this one. Let's see if we have. So this one, so total carbs, 31 grams, dietary fiber, 2 grams, total sugars, 2 grams of sugar. Okay? So I didn't see anything there that says added sugar. But let's take a look at this one. There it is. So you see that? Let's see if I can bring that up closer to you. Right, so 5 grams of carbs. 5 grams of carbs. 3 grams of fiber. Total sugars are 2 grams of sugar. And it includes 1 gram of added sugar. So the question, right, that we want to ask is, what is the reason for adding sugar to almonds? What do you think? Why would you add sugar to almonds? You add sugar to almonds to make them taste better. But almonds themselves already taste pretty good. All right, so balanced bites, so added sugar, right? We're minimizing added sugar. Now let's take a look at one of these Cadbury's, right? All right, so let's see. So Cadbury, there it is. So, right here, so total carbs, 15 grams. Fiber, less than 1 gram, right? So not a whole lot of stuff in there to blunt the sugar spike. Total sugar, 13 grams of sugar, and includes 13 grams of additional sugar, right? So it says total sugar is 13 and added sugar is 13. So all the sugar that's in here is sugar that was added. Do you get the idea? And then here's a, I don't know if we're going to be able to see this one properly, but we're going to try. So here is a, what is this? Otis Spunkmeyer banana nut naturally flavored muffin. And if I look at this, it says that it has 470 calories, right? 470 calories. And let's see if we can find this. This one's going to be a little difficult to read for you, but it says that there are, okay, there we go. That's better. It says that there are 59 grams of carbs, 1 gram of fiber, 33 grams of sugar, and 31 grams of those sugar, the sugar that's in there is added sugar. 31 grams of the sugar that's in there is added sugar. Right? So when we're talking about added sugar, we want to be careful, right? And it's not that you cannot eat it, but we are talking about minimizing it, right? So we're talking about whole foods. Remember, we're talking about what the ideal is. This is what is best. This is what the body will function with, and the body likes, and the body will function optimally with these things. Okay? And as I said before, there are things that we're going to eat. We know that. And so it is not that, we're never going to eat those things, but as we are working to improve our metabolism, we're saying to ourselves, what are the best things for what we're going to eat, or the best things for our body? Balanced bites. Balanced bites. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And then let's go back and let's take a look at that again. And here is our list. So whole foods, minimized processing, we've talked about, no added sugar, lean protein and healthy fats. Lean protein and healthy fats. Now here I've got to throw my hands up and I've got to put myself in a list. And the list is this. When I go to the restaurant, in fact, we're going to go out to the restaurant coming up here in another couple of days, right? Because we're going to be celebrating some stuff. When I go to the restaurant and I get the menu, what I've done so I used to go and I used to get pasta, right? That was my thing. Like pasta, rice, and potatoes, baked potato, and mashed potato, and the fries, right? Do my thing up. Now when I go, I get a steak and I get some vegetables, right? And when I say steak, I'm not talking about the little steak like that. I'm talking about a real steak. I'm sorry. So I don't go to those places where they only give you like that much, right? Right. So we're coming to that in a minute. So when I go and I love to get a ribeye. You know why I love to get a ribeye? I get a ribeye because it's got all that marbling in there and all the stuff in there. Yeah. And so I'm starting to learn. I haven't quite gotten there yet. I'm starting to learn to get leaner pieces of meat. Right? Like a strip, a New York strip, or a sirloin, right? But the ribeye has all that, right? All the stuff in there. Delicious. So lean protein. Lean protein. So protein like things that come from vegetables. Vegetable protein. That's lean protein. There's not a lot of fat in there. So is it bad to eat a ribeye? No, it's not bad to eat a ribeye. Is it better to eat something that doesn't have as much fat? Yes, probably. Well, I shouldn't say probably. Yes. And so Balanced Bite says, as I'm creating my meal, as I'm thinking about what are the things that I'm going to do, what I'm going to eat, I'm looking at lean protein. So when I go to eat a piece of meat, I may choose fish instead of red meat, chicken instead of red meat, a sirloin instead of a ribeye. Now, I don't know the difference between like a ribeye or a not a ribeye, but a New York strip and a sirloin, right? So I don't know. But I've been to the store before, or been to the restaurant before, and I said, "Hey, give me a tomahawk." Oh yeah. Wow. Anyway, so you guys got me started. Okay. So lean protein, healthy fats. What does a healthy fat look like? So healthy fats are typically those things that come from non-animal sources. Right? When we say healthy fat, right? That's it. However, that sirloin that I just talked about is better probably than the ribeye, because there's a lot more fat in the ribeye than it is in the strip or the filet mignon, for example, or filet. That says filet mignon, but filet. And the fat that's in chicken is probably better than the fat that's in the meat, the red meat. And the fat that's in a fish is probably better than the fat that's in the chicken. See, notice the progression. So it's not that those are wrong and they're bad. It is that there are better alternatives that you can use that fuel the body the way and we're talking about righting our metabolism, right? So we want to do the best that we can for our body. Right? Now I know the folks that are out there and there is such a thing, and I mentioned it the other night on our show. There is such a thing as whole foods plant-based. Right now, we're not talking about whole food plant-based. We're just talking about whole foods. Right? So we're not saying, hey, you have to be vegetarian, you have to be vegan. All right, that's a whole nother conversation. And we will come back and do a conversation where we talk about vegetarianism and veganism and the wonderful benefits that come from that. So there are benefits, by the way. But we're not talking about that right now. Okay? So whole foods, minimized processing, no added sugar, lean protein, healthy fats. So what are some healthy fats? Nuts. Yeah, nuts have healthy fats. We've got avocado has healthy fats. Lean protein, as we just mentioned, the differences between the steaks. Right. So those are concepts. Those are ideas. And if you guys are interested, maybe I'll put together a handout that gives you Balanced Bites and just list some things under Balanced Bites so that you can have an idea where to start. If you think that's if you like that, if you think that's a good one, go ahead and drop say yes in the comments. Say handout. Say handout. Okay. All right. So whole foods, minimized processing, no added sugar, lean protein, healthy fats, and one that let me before I go to that one, let's talk. So starchy and non-starchy vegetables. Starchy and non-starchy vegetables. What does that mean? So starchy and non-starchy vegetables. There are some vegetables, and I'm going to name them, and these are the ones that we typically think about when we talk about starch, right? when we say starchy things. We think about potatoes, right? We think about grains. We think about rice. Other starchy vegetables would be some of the roots, like yams, cassava, or yucca. So those are starchy vegetables. And most of the starchy vegetables tend to cause bigger spikes in blood sugar because there's a lot of starch that's in them. We talked about retrogradation in one of our shows, and retrogradation is the idea that when you cook something that has a lot of starch, if you cook it and put it in the refrigerator, then what happens is those molecules, the starch molecules, begin to, for lack of a better word, coalesce, if you will, right? They restructure so that when you heat them up again the next day and you eat it, you don't get as big a spike in blood sugar. So those are your starchy vegetables. Non-starchy vegetables are things like your leafy green vegetables. These are, kale and collard greens and mustard greens and turnip greens and lettuce and asparagus would be non-starchy vegetables. Broccoli would be non-starchy vegetable. Cauliflower, I'd probably put it in the starchy vegetable group. Right? So you want to have a balance between them, because there are times when you go somewhere and people will say to you, you can't ever touch those starchy things again. You can't ever for the rest of your life eat them. No, that's not the case. You've got to be mindful and you've got to say, okay, how can I blunt the effect of this food on my body? But you want to be balanced in what you're doing, starchy and non-starchy vegetables. And then the big one, y'all. The big one. I'm going to jump down to the last thing there. It says portion controlled. Portion controlled. That is my thing. That's where I often will fall down. Because what happens is, in my head, right? In my brain, it says, those almonds are healthy for you because they've got fiber, right? They've got nutrients in them. They've got protein in them. There are some healthy fats in them. So you know what? We can probably eat a lot more than we should, right? We can eat more. It's a free-for-all. It's not going to cause that big a problem. And so I tend to, as a matter of fact, the bag that I bought, and I wish I could, I didn't bring it in my show and tell box. It's in the car. But the bag I bought is a 3-pound bag of almonds, so toasted and lightly salted. 3-pound bag. And I bet you that if I'm not careful, I could sit here while I'm talking to you or on the phone or doing something in here, and I can eat the entire 3 pounds. And there's almost a thing in my head that says, oh yeah, it's healthy. So often it's not that we're eating the wrong thing, but the portions that we're eating are much larger. We've gotten used to, and you heard me, I just thought back to what I said earlier. You heard me say, I don't go to restaurants where they give you that little piece of meat, right? Isn't that crazy? Here I am teaching Balanced Bites, and I'm in my head deciding I'm not going to go to a place where they're going to give me a small portion. Wow. And that's how ingrained that is in us. But Balanced Bite says we're talking about portion control. We're eating an appropriate portion. Let's take a look. For instance, this thing right here. All right, so this Cadbury, if we're not careful, we would see this and say, okay, that's a serving. I would eat that whole thing. But if we read the back of this thing, it says that in this container, in this package, there are, you see it right there? 5, right? So 5 blocks is a serving. 5 blocks is a serving. And let me see, how many, what I was going to show you. Okay, here it is, right up here. Let's see if I can make that a little bit better. So it says 3.5, right here. 3.5 servings are in this thing. But when I pick this up, I look at this, I'm like, you know what? I can eat that whole thing. When we go to the restaurant and they give us you order some pasta, and the pasta that they give you is huge. But we've gotten used to that. And so we've got to now retrain our brain and our minds to look at servings that are appropriate for where we need to be. Because remember, we're fueling our body with balanced bites. Every bite counts. Every bite that we put in our mouth counts. Okay? And then this one is fun. This last one is going to be fun, because I have had before food that was healthy. I've had food that was healthy, and it did not taste good, y'all. They said it was healthy. And so there are a lot of people who say, you know, if that's healthy for me, then my God, I'm not going to eat that. So when you make your food, your balanced bites, make sure it is tasty. Make sure it tastes good. There's no reason that it should not. So in balanced bites, it says that the food that you're eating should be tasty. And I'm not talking about, you know, going out of your way to add stuff, you know, sugar and I'm saying make the food tasty. Because if it's not tasty, you're not going to eat it for long. You may eat it for a week and 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You may even eat it for a couple of years or a couple of months. Sorry, I said years. A couple of months or a year. But at some point, your body's going to say, you know what? Yeah, this is not satisfying to me. Now, there is a concept, and we did our Sugar Busters course a couple of years ago, and that's coming back. But it takes about 15 days. Sorry, no, I said 14. It takes 15 days to change your taste buds. 15 days. And so there are things that we can learn to eat after we've eaten them a while. But as you're thinking about balanced bites, you want to make sure that you are you are preparing meals that are tasty. And don't say, what I don't like, it's kind of like, you know, sometimes you watch these sci-fi movies or sci-fi shows, and they're eating, and they're like, it's just for nutrition. So we're just eating this little block, right? It has no taste, it has no flavor, it has no texture. It's just, you know, I'm just eating it because it's nutrition. Well, yeah, but you know, that's not where we want to be, right? We want nutrition that is tasty. And so that's the idea behind balanced bites. Balanced bite says that everything I put in my mouth counts. We're fueling our body with balanced bites. The things that we eat matter. It's not just a calorie, but there are signals that come from it. There are processes that go on in the body that can be destroyed by the processing of the food, and we don't want to do that. So balanced bites. Whole foods, minimize the processing, no added sugar or minimize added sugar, lean protein, healthy fats, starchy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, we want to balance, tasty and flavorful, yes, and then appropriate portion control. Balanced bites are also a way of reversing diabetes. Because if we follow that list, we're minimizing sugar. That's reducing sugar. When we reduce sugar, we decrease the insulin. When we decrease insulin, we suppress the appetite. Look at that. Another tool that hits all of the pillars of reversing diabetes. Balanced bites. All right. Well, let's see. Let's hop over and let's see. I saw some comments coming through, so let's go ahead and grab some of those. Let's go back up here and let's see. Where were we? So Cornelia was giving us her guess at 2.0. I love it. And then Gian is saying, hi, Doc. Hey, Gian, thank you for coming through. She says, hi, Doctor. Hi, Wood Gang. She says, I'm late, but we are glad that you're here. Cornelia is saying hi to Gian. Gian is saying hi to Cornelia. And Gian is saying, I love that. Processing is not good indeed, but delicious. It sure enough is. Cornelia said, I agree with Gian. I love Cadbury. Cornelia, I'm sorry I put that up. I didn't mean to tempt you. Oh, Gian says, I can't do balanced bites with sugary food though. Yeah, it balanced bites is tough with food. With in general, balanced bite it takes you understanding what you want. Remember, we're talking about our why. It takes you understanding why we're doing what we're doing, and understanding that it is progress and not perfection. Okay. Gian says, oh, Cornelia, I can't make balanced bites. That lovely stuff. Gian said, Cornelia, do you have WhatsApp? So they're kind of connecting with each other. Doctor, I can eat all that's in the box in one sitting. Oh, Gian, you haven't said nothing but a word right there. Me and you, yeah, I can eat all of that. Cornelia says, balanced bites definitely takes more effort. Yes. Cornelia, okay. Boom, boom, boom. Gian says, we can connect. So they're connecting with each other. Sure. Gian says, I like ribeye more than sirloin, right? Because it has that marbling in it. Steve says, I get biscuits and gravy once a year. I had my pizza at Christmas. Cornbread is once a year too. Okay, so Steve has a regiment that he's on to try to help with his balanced bites. Cornelia said that is awesome control, Steve. Steve says, I have to, Cornelia. My heart dictates what I can have. I understand. Asian and Cajun seasoning will add a spark to dull cuisine. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, Steve. Do you have a specific, and not to promote a brand, but you have a specific one that you use, Steve, that you don't mind sharing with us? Gion says seasoning is challenging. Yes, it can be. Cornelia says yes, to Steve's point as well. Every bite counts. Yes, every bite counts. All right. Oh, and of course, I thought you guys were seeing all of those comments, so I apologize. Let's go back here. Because I was talking and going through them, but you weren't seeing them. So Gian says, I like ribeye. Steve said I can get a biscuits and gravy. Cornelia said that's awesome control. Steve talking about his heart, which is why he does what he does in terms of his diet. And then Asian and Cajun seasoning. Thank you once again for that tip, Steve. And yes, to Steve's point as well. And so Steve is saying, he said, whatever I can get at Publix. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go out there and see what they got. We have a wheat allergy here. So some of the seasonings that we sometimes look at are we don't get because they have flour in it. And Steve says sometimes I order online. Okay, all right. Well, cool. All right. So let's see. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at what my ketones are. So let me get the Cadbury off of the table. Now, what did I do with my? Okay, there it is. So here is my Keto Mojo. And then right now my blood sugar is 72. Now notice that my blood sugar went up a little bit while I was here talking, right? So I get animated, my cortisol goes up, and all of that happens. Okay, let's take a look at my Keto Mojo. And there's my app. And let's go ahead and turn on my report, or turn on my meter. And if I remember correctly, let's go back up here and see what we got in terms of star. We got 1.6 from, and let me sync this while we're talking. We've got a 1.6 from Steve, 2.0 from Cornelia, and I don't know, Gian, what do you think is going to be? Go ahead and drop your guess in there. Okay, so I've got those two, and let's see if anybody else guessed from any other platforms. Okay, so I don't see any guesses over there. All right, so drum roll, please. Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. Okay, Gian, do you have a guess? Do you have a guess? I'm waiting just a minute longer. If not, here we come, here we come, here we come. And my ketones are, as Gian says, 2.0. So ketones are 1.8. So blood sugar is 74 and 1.8 ketones. Yay. Okay. So remember, when we talk about ketones that are less than 0.5 considered normal, 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 is considered therapeutic ketosis. And so when we talk about metabolism and fasting and being in ketogenic, on a ketogenic diet, we want 0.5 or higher, is what we're shooting for. And if we go ahead and take a look at my graph, let's see what we got here. Okay, yeah, there we are. So the tan line, that's my blood sugar, and the blood sugar went from 103 down to 88 yesterday, and then of course now down to 74. And the ketones, as the blood sugars are going down, the ketones are going up. So it went from a 0.3 to a 1.1, which was yesterday, and then 1.8 today. When blood sugars go down, insulin goes down. When insulin goes down, ketones can go up, because insulin and ketones can't exist together. Okay? So as my blood sugar goes up, when I start eating, the insulin will come up, and when the insulin comes up, then my ketones are going to go away. Okay? Not just because, well, ketones are going to go away, also because I will be eating things that have carbs in them. So my body is going to switch back to burning carbohydrates. Now we have community members who try to maintain a ketogenic diet, and they try to stay in ketosis even when they're not fasting. And I try to extend my ketosis longer when I start eating, so I try not to eat things that are highly carb heavy or a lot of sugar during those first, when I'm breaking my fast. And tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to show you some of the things I'm going to break my fast with. I'm planning to break my fast with, and kind of talk through that. Okay? All right. So that's the plan. That's the plan. Everything that we do is with the idea that we're righting our metabolism. If we can right the metabolism, bring it back into homeostasis, make it balanced again, then we will combat a lot of the diseases that are out there. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver, polycystic ovarian syndrome, diabetes, prediabetes, obesity. All of that gets better if we can get the metabolism back into where it should be. And balanced bites, fueling our body with balanced bites is one of the biggest things that we can do. Fasting is the other thing that we do, right? Balanced bites, fasting, and we'll talk about some other tools that we can put in our toolbox to begin helping us. So can you imagine what happens Come on now. Here's we're putting it together. Can you imagine what happens when you fast and you're improving your metabolism by becoming more insulin sensitive, by decreasing the sugar that you're putting in, by decreasing the insulin that you're putting in, suppressing the appetite? Now we've got all the benefits of fasting in terms of autophagy, improved inflammation, improved immunity. So that's during the fasting period. And then now when we're not fasting, we throw in there balanced bites. 1-2 punch. So we're already getting benefit from fasting. And now during our eating window, we're also getting benefit because the things that we're eating are the things that are going to supercharge our body. Put those together, and what an amazing process we have to improve our metabolism and get us healthier, reversing our diabetes. Love it, love it, love it. As we go through our process, remember, everything that we do is built on our Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows, with the blogs, with the podcasts. We empower with the tools that we're learning. Balanced Bites is a tool. Fasting is a tool. How the body works, understanding that is a tool. And then we encourage with the community that you are a part of, that your community that you're helping to build. And so glad that you all are here in this space. What I want you to know is that Limitless Living, which is our theme for this year, says that there's nothing that's going to cause me to be obstructed. I am breaking free. And that's what the back of my mug says. It says, I am breaking free from boundaries, and I'm pursuing my best health, my best self, and presenting my best goals without being held back by anything external or internal, and I'm not letting those be roadblocks. So nothing from inside, nothing from outside is going to prevent me from doing what I need to do to be successful metabolically, reversing my diabetes, or in any area of my life. I'm so glad that you're here. We will be back tomorrow as we do our check-in. We're heading to 72 hours. We will be back on Saturday for video from the vault at 9 p.m. Central. And then on Sunday, we'll be back also with This Week in Review. Make sure you 6 a.m. Central right here on the channel. And of course, Monday we'll be back in the saddle with Dwain Woode, MD, live at 7 p.m. Central. Right now, I am putting a link into the community tab. For those of you who are there, come on by. We're going to chop it up a little bit and then get on into the things that we've got to do for the rest of. Well, it's for a lot of us, it's late. Okay, but I'm going to pop that in there right now. Let's do that. Boom, boom, boom. And so I look forward to seeing those of you who pop over. Okay? All right. Well, once again, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And right there, I'm going to pause because I see a question and a comment from Cornelia. And Cornelia, we're gonna hop over and get that. So Cornelia says, I like Slap Your Mama Cajun seasoning. So I'm gonna star that because I want to keep that. And then Cornelia says, do you have a video on what it feels and looks like to strengthen the inner coach and addressing the inner critic? Oh, Cornelia. There is a video that I did on how when I talked about building a better version of ourselves. But we're going to come back in Limitless Living, right? And we're going to talk about that. That is actually in the list of one of the shows that we're going to do, because that is a vital part. That is a vital part of this process that we're on. But let me go ahead and let's see. I do have a video that I'm going to put the link in. right? But we're coming back again, and we're gonna look at this because it is one of those pivotal concepts that is so important for us to look at and so important for us to do. So let me go ahead. I'm going to find that, and that's a great question, Cornelia. I love that. Let's see. And this was, like I said, in our series that we did, building a better version of ourselves. And what I may do is just pop that into a comment on the channel, because right now, let's see, where is that? Okay, I think I saw, where is it? How to strengthen your inner coach. There it is. So I have two that I'm going to do. So one is called what is the difference between an inner critic and an inner coach? And then how to strengthen your inner coach. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to grab that one real quickly, Cornelia, and pop that in the chat for you. So this one is called, oops, did I do that? The first one is the difference between an inner critic and an inner coach. And then this one is how to strengthen your inner coach. Let's see, where did it go? Oh, there it is. So great question. Great question. Boom, there it is. Okay, all right. So as I started to say, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health in life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And we are walking down the path. We are living limitless life. Limitless living is what we're in, because it says nothing from outside or inside is going to prevent me from doing what I need to do to be successful. I'm presenting my best self, my best health, and my best plans for my life, and I'm breaking free of those obstacles. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for hanging out. We'll see you in our next episode, and we'll see you in the community. Good night, everybody.